Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our discussion on how community support service organizations can improve efficiency and demonstrate ROI. For this discussion, myself, Ray Sabharwal, will be your host. And on our panel today, we have Gillian Barrie from Alzheimer Society of Durham, Durham region, I would say. And with her, we have Jordan Fox from Athena Software. In the next 30 to 45 minutes, we will be discussing why improving efficiencies is becoming important, what options are available for optimizing efficiency, and how can agencies demonstrate ROI to their funders. Again, this would be a discussion without any PowerPoint slides or a product demo. And before I proceed, I'll let Gillian and Jordan introduce themselves and make it easier for you, all of you, to match the name to the face. So Gillian, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Gillian Barrie, and I'm the Director of Clinical Services at the Alzheimer Society of Durham region.
And my name is Jordan Fox. I'm the Director of Sales at Athena Software and been here for just under 6 years now and happy to be here today.
Perfect. So thank you, folks. Let me start by understanding why improving efficiencies is becoming increasingly important for community support organizations. Jordan, you want to take a start at that?
Efficiencies, I think, are important at community support organizations, the same reason they're important in any kind of business or any kind of human organization. Efficiencies are, the fastest way to get from A to B in terms of process or in terms of serving somebody in this case and what we're talking about. And, any organization or most organizations, whether they're social, human, or for profit, have a limited amount of funding that they're trying to use to accomplish a goal. And so I think when we're talking about community support organizations, it's the same kind of discussion where, we're trying to find as many efficiencies as possible to use the same pool of funding to do more, which in this case is serving more people.
That makes sense. So, Gillian, what do you think? Considering you have been working with community support organizations throughout your career. Share some of your views on this topic.
Yeah, I agree with what Jordan said. I think we're seeing an increase in the number of people who are using community support services. And, we do have a restricted amount of funds that we have to use, and we have to be incredibly efficient, incredibly nimble in how we use those funds. And we have an obligation to report back on those funds. So we really require, accurate statistical data that is able to tell our funders exactly what we're doing and what we're using their money for, right?
Okay, no, makes sense. So help me understand a bit of what you're doing at Alzheimer's Society of Durham region to improve efficiency.
It's a good question. I think we're always striving for continuous improvement. We're always looking forward. We're trying to be innovative. And recently, when we took over with Penelope using that database, we adopted this platform to help manage our client information as well as kind of track our client progress. So we have staff who are using the platform to document notes and clinical information as well as to mark attendance for things. We're really using that platform to be able to store all of our client information. And recently we actually started using the ADME feature, which is a web-based referral form that is secure. And our referral partners are able to use that web form very easily, and the information goes directly into our secure client database. And we're finding, especially with the current climate, that a lot of people are working remotely. They don't have access to a fax machine to send in a referral. So having a web-based option has been incredibly important for us. And it was a really great move, just looking forward into the future as well.
Yeah, I know. You know what? That's such a great insight. I had never thought about the option of fax because it's been such a dated technology. But I always forget there are organizations and institutions for which paper trail and this mode of communication is still a very much reality. So, Jordan, have you encountered or heard anything related to fax being communicated for communication purposes?
For sure. I think, any kind of, like, whether it's email or fax or text, all those are being used, and they really differ depending on the context that social or human services are being delivered. There's a lot of contexts where, the common medium that we would use today in mobile technology just isn't possible. Maybe it's the demographic of the people that we're serving, and so the method that we use to connect with people and the technology that we use has to sort of reflect the demographic that we're serving.
Right. No, makes sense. So, Jordan, what do you suggest to social service organizations and other nonprofit agencies to improve their efficiency? What could you recommend, or what do you suggest?
Well, what I would suggest, and this is really what we see with most of the partners that we work with, is to use technology appropriately to create some of those efficiencies. And a couple of the most used techniques that people are using in terms of technology are putting a lot of this process into the hands of the people they're serving. So one easy way is starting to use engagement technology to say, okay, there's parts of our process, and it's usually the parts of the process that are procedural in nature. So like intake forms, check-ins, some kinds of formal assessments or other forms, consent forms that are needed. All those steps that in the past take a long time because most of them had to be done in person, where you'd have somebody come in, they're just there to sign a consent form or an intake form, and then they're gone. Each time you have one of those sort of steps where somebody's required to come in, it opens up the opportunity for inefficiencies. They don't show up. They show up with the wrong piece of identification. They're not prepared, whatever it might be. Those are all steps that, again, open themselves up for inefficiencies. And when you put technology in that place and you say, okay, instead of coming in or instead of having a human phone call, we're sending you the intake form in a mobile responsive format, or we're sending you the consent form to do at home. Or in certain use cases, maybe we're sending it to a surrogate or somebody who's a parent guardian who oversees sort of the case to fill out for on your behalf. That starts to create efficiencies to say, okay, now we're not experiencing people no showing because they can do the intake form whenever they'd like, and it's at home. And a human, on the agency side, really only has to intervene when the form doesn't come back by the deadline, and then maybe a phone call is necessary. The other common way we'd see is reducing no-shows. So same kind of thing. Maybe it's by text, maybe it's by email, but sending out notifications on a timed, automated basis to say, hey, your appointment or your event is tomorrow. And it might just be a simple reminder blast. But we also see a lot of organizations saying, no, let's make that two-way. So we'll send out a reminder that your event is tomorrow, and we want you to just click to confirm. And that way we know that you sort of acknowledge that it's tomorrow. And we'll give you a call if we don't get that confirmation click. And that way we're not calling everybody, which organizations used to do. Let's call everybody to remind them. We're only calling those who haven't clicked in to say that they're confirmed coming.
Right. This is very interesting, and and considering the current scenario, this becomes so relevant because you're not only trying to create efficiencies, but also reducing the spread of the pandemic and making people safe in their lives of their as well as their family members even safer. So that's really, really interesting, and I'm glad that there are tangible ways to see technology improving people's lives. So, which is interesting. So, if whatever you talked about, it sounds very exciting. Now, if any of the agencies out there who are not using any technology, if they wanted to implement any of those, what are the options to see or demonstrate that ROI?
Well, I think it's described in different ways across different verticals or geographies, but some kind of client management, case management system is the most typical route that people are adopting, and especially in the community support or nonprofit space. And typically that, we see these being used because they do offer an efficient way to have data input on the front end. But equally as important, or sometimes more important, is the wide range of pre-built reports that come out the back end. And that's either pre-built or an open back end to be able to say, I just need access to all of my raw data and I'll splice it as my funders see fit. are typically the routes that people go. And most organizations are either doing this today in, a simple Excel sheet using pivot tables, that kind of thing. And to be honest, in a lot of cases, we don't discourage against that. So oftentimes that still is the best way, because funder requirements are so flexible, and the goalposts get moved so often, so to speak. It's often the best route to say, well, let's get all of our raw data in an Excel sheet, and we'll use these pivot tables to splice and dice as the funders require.
Right. No, thank you, Jordan, for those insights. Gillian, is that what your team is doing? Or if not, how is your team, what is your team doing to showcase ROI?
Yes, we do that exact what Jordan just said in terms of the raw data. We pull it out the back end, and we can really basically splice and dice, I guess, what we need for the amount of funding reports we have. We do report to many different entities, so there's never one standard report that we're always, I mean, there is a standard report, but it's not necessarily something that we need the raw data to be able to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we do that exact thing. We pull the raw data and we were able to use it as we need. We also have started the process of building some custom reports, and we do use the front end reports for things that are more kind of internal. So the monthly reports that I run for my teams, I use the front end reports. They're very helpful. And then the process of the building custom report is more for those external reports that we send to our funders, because they are a little bit more in depth. They often change in terms of requirements. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're constantly trying to improve on, and we're always looking for ways to enhance our capacity, because we don't want is staff time being taken up running reports, right? It's something that we need to be able to do quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if those report formats are changing every so often, it becomes an added challenge. No, Jordan, have you seen that with other organizations as well, where the reporting formats change fairly often? And if yes, do we have any recommendation for such organizations?
Sure. I think the first step is embracing the technology on the front end that we've been talking about. And, whether that's a SaaS platform, which is, what we offer here with Penelope, you want to sort of embrace a good, easy to use front end solution, because you want to put the guardrails on data input and sort of ensure that, for lack of a better phrasing, data hygiene is top of mind with the organization. And data hygiene, meaning like the data is correct and the data is being entered properly on the front end, reduces all that time on the back end where you have to scrub and clean it before you're sending it off to funders. So, as a tangent, that is one of the reasons why with our implementation process, there is, so much upfront work put into the implementation of the system, because laying out an organization's, business processes and saying, well, this is how our process flows, and this is where it's important that people capture the right kind of data, is so critical to the other side of that coin, which is the back end and pulling out clean reports. Yeah, I would say that is the first point. The second thing is, if you are using, a client or case management platform, then I would invest in the right kind of reporting. And maybe you do just want a flexible back end where it's, again, pouring out into a sort of an open space where you can manipulate the data. Or if your funders are more regimented and you do have sort of standard reports that you just need to pull, that's where it might be worth the investment to reach out and say, hey, I need somebody to help build a custom report if you don't have the in-house help. And that's where, we have a team here at Athena we call them the tailored services team, and they do provide that service. So some organizations have reporting departments or a reporting person who does nothing but build reports. But, the reason our tailored services team exists is because we do work with a lot of organizations who don't have that core competency, and they rely on us to be that core competency. And that's something that we've been providing for 20 plus years. And so there's a lot of best practice knowledge in that team on how to do it efficiently.
No, perfect. Gillian, any comments based on your experience at Alzheimer's Society?
Yeah, I agree. I really kind of echo what Jordan had said there. The tailored services for us was critical because, again, staff capacity, we're trying to build something that could be used for those standard reports that like don't often change. But then we also sometimes will have, you know, new grants or funding requirements that come in that we weren't expecting. And so if we can use the front end very quickly, those reports to pull that information for us, that is a huge advantage. I think I mentioned earlier that we worked with Tailored Services for our web form development, and it was really wonderful to be able to sit down with someone and they understood kind of what we were trying to achieve. We also needed to have a web form that was bilingual, and so they were very, very helpful in being able to build that for us. We try to be as efficient as possible, and I think that it allows us to retain it allows us to retain the arrangement we have with our existing funders and know that we're reporting back on something that is accurate. And what Jordan said too about the data from the front end being good, that you know what you're pulling from the back end is accurate. So I think that for our existing funders, we're confident in what we would provide to them. But then also we're able to attract potentially like new funders or new grants because we know we will be able to report on what's required.
Right. And I think from a funder's point of view, it is equally important for them to understand and visualize the tangible ROI of the work that the agencies are doing from the accuracy of the data that you provide them. So I think it's a two-way street, which is brilliant. Thank you for that, for that insight. Just out of curiosity, Gillian, how long you've been using Penelope, and what has been your experience so far?
So we implemented Penelope about 2.5 years ago, and it was implemented originally just with certain parts of our organization, client-facing teams and things like that, and we've expanded it out. So I really do feel that our experience has been positive. I think we've been really focusing on using Penelope to its full potential. I specifically really like, I do enjoy the reporting features of it, but I also really like the use of the pre-enrollment feature. So if people are looking at, you know, do we have clients waiting for service? We can put people on wait lists, we can put them in a pre-enrollment, and we can look at the reports of, you know, how many people are waiting for a service, or do we have enough people to run another program? For us, it really helps us plan. It helps us plan our upcoming programs and services, but it also allows us to report back on our performance and the demand for our service. So if we know we're running at a wait list, we're able to go back and say, hey, you know, we've got these people waiting, and what can we do in terms of funding? You know, can we fund more positions? What can we do to look at that? So that for us has been really helpful. And yeah, I just think overall it's been a change for our agency, but a very positive change.
Oh, that's great to hear. You know, I would love to continue the discussion on the thread, but something just, you triggered something in my head about, you know, using customer data, you know, allowing individuals or clients to populate the data. The question to both of you is, you know, with all this data points coming in, some of it falling under PHI or PII, and there are compliance and other, you know, legislative requirements that we have to abide by, not only at a provincial or a state level, but or a national level, but also at an agency level. How do you have any comments on that? How does technology enable them, or does it you know, make it difficult for us to be compliant? Or Jordan, from your point of view, how does Penelope help ensure that you know, the compliance is maintained, et cetera, et cetera? Anything you can share about client data confidentiality and security?
Sure. Well, it is like the bulk of the cost and investment that goes into Athena as a company on the, you know, as a whole. So our server sites and the system itself and the supporting staff around it are, you know, the highest sort of cost for us as a company is around the security and compliance side of things. And yeah, as an example, our company is ISO certified, which is a very regimented sort of level of compliance as an entire organization. But if you actually, you know, look into a resource like our security white paper as an example, it will outline sort of the capabilities of our our servers and our system in terms of security, and it adheres and exceeds, any government regulations that exist from if you're in the US, a HIPAA standpoint, or in Canada with PIPEDA or FIPA. And that's, I think, an unspoken reason why a lot of organizations will partner with a SaaS system like Penelope, is because you're basically signing off on peace of mind that you don't have to worry about that. If we rewound the clock 10 years ago, a lot of organizations had servers themselves on site. And when I say servers, that could be just a piece of computer hardware in a closet with a padlock on it. And that was really common. And I think we've come a long way in the last decade to say, not only is that not happening anymore, but people are recognizing that kind of investment is critical. It's like insurance. I mean, if you don't invest in it, you are at risk for breaches and other things that can happen that can be, business critical. So I think it's often not at the forefront of the conversation. I think at the forefront of the conversation is always usability and reporting, but unspoken behind the scenes is this, extremely important topic of security and compliance that Penelope can bring.
And when I mentioned the fax piece, so that's because fax was previously, like, faxing is still considered a safe way of sharing client information. So when we decided to pivot to using a web form, we knew it had to be secure, and going through Penelope and using that feature, the Add Me feature, we knew that would allow us to have a very secure way of client data being completely safe going into our system. Privacy for us is such a huge piece of being a healthcare custodian. Like, it really, we have to be very transparent with our clients. We want to be transparent with them about privacy and our policies. So knowing that our client database meets all of those requirements for us, it gives us much more confidence in being able to say, we're doing the following things to protect your personal health information.
So has there ever been a breach or of data security or a non-compliance episode at your organization?
No, not with Penelope. No.
Okay, perfect. So which kind of is a good segue into the next question I wanted to discuss with you. As ever since you've implemented Penelope, what tangible benefits have you or your team, realized ever since its implementation? If you have any data points or any thoughts on that, it will be great to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, our team embraced it. They were looking for a management system that was a little bit more user-friendly. It also, from my perspective as a leader, it allows my team to have more accountability for their work, because they can also view reports and they can generate reports for their own work. So for us, the benefits have really been timing of generating reports. So I don't have to necessarily review every single person's data input when they're also monitoring it themselves. And so it gave our workers and our teams the ability to have that accountability. And it also allows them to really follow up with their clients in a better way. There's the task feature, the reminder feature, so they're able to prioritize their client needs, so that they're not missing any follow-up dates. And I guess when you think about tangible benefits for us, we always look to what the value is for our clients. So if they're getting seamless service, they're feeling supported, for us, that's definitely the benefit.
Perfect. No, that's very good to hear. Not because, I'm from Penelope, from Athena Software. It's primarily because it is a very tangible visualization of an agency reaping the benefits using technology, so which is wonderful. Just as a parting thought, if you were to recommend a Penelope to your fellow peers within the social and nonprofit universe, what would you suggest to them?
I would say it is easy to use. It's intuitive, not to be afraid of change. I think our team would agree that it is user friendly. And honestly, having a great support team, we feel we can always go to Penelope. They're very helpful with whatever our needs might be. It was a pleasure working with Tailored Services on our web-based referral form. We always feel like we can go to them and say, this is what we're looking at. What do you think? What could be done? So not to fear change, because change can be good. And I do think that this is the future for community support services. So that's what I would say. Definitely recommend.
Well, thank you. Jordan, do you want to add something to that before we wrap up? Or anything that you think social services or nonprofit agencies could benefit from, benefits of using a case management platform?
I don't think I could add anything new, but I would definitely underline, bold, and italicize what Gillian said there about the change management piece. In that, I think it's good if people come in with the expectation that it is change, and it should be, if you're doing it right, it should be significant change. And systems are very habitual. Like the way that we interact with systems, I always think of it like it's any part of your life that's habits. That, you know, when and how you brush your teeth, and have your coffee. If somebody makes changes to those, it's going to feel uncomfortable for the first little bit because it's just a change in habit. Using systems are no different. It's changes to your habits that are going to feel disruptive in some ways at the start, but ideally you have to keep, the whole organization has to keep sort of the North Star at the front of, at the top of mind as they're going through this project, to say, yeah, the short-term pain is habitual change. The long-term gain are those efficiencies, security, saving and reporting time, and ultimately better client experience for the people that you're serving, which I think is all of our North Stars in this. So I think that would be my only reiteration or backup of Gillian's point there.
No, no, thank you for that. And I totally back both of you up because I'm a very firm believer that technology should be viewed as an investment, not as a capital cost, because you're investing for the future to make lives easier and simpler and efficient. So having said that, I want to thank you both for your valuable time and wonderful insights. It was a pleasure talking to you both. Thank you very much.